Well, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but oddly enough, it kind of was the perfect way to end the home slate for Missouri in 2023. Harrison Mevis walking it off and a legendary fourth down conversion. Let's talk about this wild Missouri victory over Florida right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And my goodness, what a win by the Tigers, to say the least. Obviously, I'm thrilled Missouri won, but there's also a part of me that's kind of sad that we only have one game left and the home part of the slate is over. And as my dad and I were leaving the stadium yesterday, driving home, I was saying thanks for another great football season, of course, but also I was going, this is obviously a top 5 season I've ever seen in my entire life. And the more I started thinking about it this morning, I think this is the third best Mizzou football season of my life anyway. I'm 40 years old, born in 83, so to me, behind 07 and 2013, to me, this one's actually slightly ahead of 2014, despite the fact that no division championship this year for Missouri. But to me, this team is a little bit better than 2014. I just think this is a better season, better wins, the whole bit. I just think overall this is a better team. And by the way, one more win probably for a New Year's Six bowl game for Missouri, Fiesta Bowl, quite possibly if you take down Arkansas. Hey, no guarantee in the SEC, as we saw yesterday. Don't just chalk up a victory in this conference, even if you are double-digit favorites, because as Florida showed, they're not ready to just roll over and give up on the season. That tells me that Billy Napier certainly deserves at least another season. I would have thought it was insanity if they got rid of him almost under any circumstances, but frankly, give Florida a lot of credit. Trevor Etienne, that Florida running game really got going in the second half, and once Graham Mertz got knocked out there in the second half with what Napier called after the game a significant collarbone injury, for them to be down 2 possessions, come back and take the lead in the fourth quarter there, that's really impressive stuff from Florida. But obviously Missouri missed Tyron Hopper, especially in the second half there. Really the Tiger defense mostly dominated the first half, other than one big play that got the Gators into the red zone there in the first half. But obviously Florida figured some stuff out in the second half. But you know what? Let's talk about the play of the game, of course. Missouri down, trailing, down by a point. 38 seconds left. It's 4th down and 17. I actually saw 18, I believe, in the stadium, but we'll go with 4th down and 17 from the Tigers' own 33-yard line with no timeouts left, and somehow Missouri converts. Brady Cook gets enough time from his pocket, throws it over over the linebacker's head to Luther Burden, who just sits down in a zone about 20 yards away. What an unbelievable play by Missouri, and one that's just going to live on for forever, really. For those of us who remember this season, certainly for Brady Cook and Luther Burden and Eli Drinkwitz and everybody on that squad, that's the type of play you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And it's funny, I was actually just kind of staring off into space during one of the many TV timeouts that we suffer through during these games, but was looking over the wall, remembering to the different walls, the wall ring of honor, if you will, for Missouri, Of course, remembering just a few weeks back when Jeremy Macklin's name was put on that wall, also noticed, there's 3-4 spots available here. Who's going to go up on the wall? I think Chase Daniel's going to get up there one day. I personally think Brad Smith should be up there one day. But it got me thinking, Luther Burden's got a chance to be up there. If he has a season next season that's like this past season, possibly even better, hey, the guy's a true sophomore. Yes, he can still improve. He's got a chance to get up there too. And to me, that 4th and 17 conversion, one of the iconic plays certainly in Missouri history. And that's the type of thing that builds your legacy, and the fact that he's this number one player, stayed home, making just a massive difference in this program this season. Really, his presence has been as much of a difference, I think, as any other factor in Missouri turning this program around in 2023. And you know what? While we're at it, let's bring up that 4th and 17 snap here from my perspective in the end zone here. And one thing you notice, of course, Florida rushes 4, has obviously, as you'd expect on 4th and 17 here, a couple safeties deep. If anything, I don't think Florida has enough defensive backs here on the field. I'm not sure who number 34 is, but I don't think he's a cornerback. Let's put it that way. And the reason I'm focusing on 34 here, who's lined up over number 10, Mekhi Miller, well, the ball ends up going over his head. Let's put it that way. So we'll roll the snap here. You see Miller come across his face. 34 lets him go. Obviously, Florida's in a zone here. Probably some type of cover 4 quarters type coverage where everybody's dropping deep back into a zone, as you might expect. But you look at what 34 here does. He lets Miller go. That's fine, but why is he not getting deep here? Like, what in the world is he thinking? It's 4th down and 17. What are you worried about here? The dump off over the middle to Cody Schrader? Get deep, son. So thank you very much to number 34 for helping this play happen. But you know what's interesting to me is I broke down Brady Cook's interception last week, and I thought, seemed like there was a little bit of a miscommunication between Burden and Cook. It seemed like Cook thought Burden last week was going to continue on a post route. And right here on this play, if you look at the hole that's created in the middle of the field here, right in the middle of the field, where the Missouri logo is, I think if I were Brady Cook, I would have anticipated Luther Burden would have kept going on a post route here. I'd have thrown that ball to the middle of the field. But instead, well, Burden and Cook are obviously on the same page here. Throws it right over the top of 34. Incredible throw by Cook. Number one, great job by the line to give him all the protection that he needs. But also Burden, just showing, hey, I know right where to be here. That's unbelievable to me that he knew to just sit right in that spot. Is that the design of the play? Probably. But at the same time, I just love that they're on the same page here. Because to me, if I were the receiver, if I were the quarterback, I would have probably kept that post route going. But obviously those guys knew something that I didn't. So just really impressive on about a billion different levels here. Great protection, great throw, great route. Obviously a good contested catch by Burden too. Gets a few yards after the catch even. I mean, really, this guy's got a chance to go on the wall. He really does. And you know what? I honestly don't know how many people, other than the guys in that Missouri locker room, that really would have believed that this season was possible. Especially you think about all the guff that Brady Cook in particular took in the offseason. There were many people that didn't think Cody Schrader was a worthy SEC caliber starting running back. And at this point, let's face it, they've proven all of us wrong. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. So let's talk about why those guys believe that Missouri learned a ton of lessons last year and actually they refused to lose. Let's throw let's shower some praise on all of these young men here coming up in just a little bit. But first, I want to tell you about eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And according to Cody Schrader and Brady Cook, they both believe that last season the Tigers would have found a way to lose yesterday's ball game. Schrader said, quote, "We're tough and we refuse to lose. I truly believe we won that game because of what we learned last year. Last year, I truly believe we may have found a way to lose that game." And Brady Cook agreed, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, and yet at the same time, Missouri would have won the Auburn game if they simply make a field goal, a short field goal, and hold on to the ball at the end of the game as well. But you know what? Even though Harrison Mevis yesterday didn't attempt a field goal over 40 yards, made all of his kicks yesterday, 4 for 4 on field goals, made all 3 of his extra points, and quite honestly, him walking off for all intents and purposes, yes, there were a couple more snaps there for Florida, but I'm going to go ahead and call that a walk-off victory for Harrison Mevis. How appropriate is that for the kid who won it against K-State from 61 yards, won the Arkansas game? I mean, it's just been a tremendous player for Missouri in what is almost certainly his last game. I will point out, though, this is Mevis' 4th year at Missouri. His first year was 2020. That means if he wanted to come back next year, well, he could. Frankly, if I were Mevis, I would probably take my shot at pro football and see how it goes. But if he wants to come back in 2024, obviously Missouri fans, we're gonna welcome him back with open arms. But speaking of somebody we're obviously going to welcome back with open arms next year, Brady Cook, 7 for 10 for 67 yards on Missouri's game-winning drive. It just seemed like first half in particular, Missouri's offense was okay, but we just couldn't quite get the passing game going. Felt like the running game was its usual steady self on those outside zone runs by Cody Schrader for the most part. But just for some reason, it just felt like Missouri's passing game was a little bit stuck in the mud. But obviously in the second half, Missouri breaks out big time. Theo Weiss takes a short pass from Brady Cook, 77 yards to the end zone. And actually, let's pull up that snap really quickly because Brady Cook did something very subtly here that made this play happen. So while I was asking for more play action, I got it here on this play to Weiss, though not on a deep shot, just a simple little dump-off play here. It looked like Weiss was probably the primary receiver here. Generally, when you have a receiver go across the formation like this on a play action, that's kind of going to be your first option. Well, 14 for Florida State does a nice job of initially covering Weiss and staying at home. But what does Brady Cook do? And by the way, Mookie Cooper, Luther Burden pretty well covered here in man-to-man as well. But what does Brady Cook do here? He doesn't panic. He doesn't just leave the pocket. He's saying, hey, go this way, go that way, which 14 then decides, I better respect Brady Cook's running ability because I've seen this on film. So what does Cook do? He takes advantage of that. Just a little subtle stop and go here. Suddenly now Theo Weiss is wide open in the flat. Ball hits him basically at the line of scrimmage, and he does the rest of the work. But again, just this subtle little move here by Cook gets him all the space in the world, also hits him with a nice accurate pass in stride. Now notice the blocking downfield by the Missouri receivers. Mookie Cooper initially pushes him out of the way, gets a little seam here for Weiss to get past number 15, and now notice Luther Burden as well, all the way down the field, acting like a fullback, basically, leading the way here for Weiss as he tiptoes the sidelines and gets into the end zone. And this really felt like, boy, going to be awful tough for Florida to come back after this one, but give them all the credit in the world for coming back from a 2-possession deficit in the fourth quarter with a backup quarterback. And obviously Missouri's struggles in the red zone, failing to convert red zone opportunities into touchdowns, was a huge reason of why Florida was able to hang around in this ball game and nearly pull the upset. And while Missouri's execution was definitely lacking there, it was also just simple mistakes, like in the snapping, for instance, that once again cost Missouri, and to the point where when it was looking bad there with a couple minutes left in the game, Missouri trailing, I wrote down, this is a great team that just makes a few too many sloppy mistakes at times. And there's no doubt that, again, for instance, when the ball was snapped low to Brady, Cook initially ruled a completion, a first down, actually a touchdown to Brett Norfleet, now that I think about it. Well, that play was taken off the board because of a low snap. Cook had to get it with his knee on the ground. So that ball, or that touchdown, was taken off the board. That could have been a call, could have been a moment, quite literally, that cost Missouri the football game. That 4 points there was looking quite crucial as Florida had that 1-point lead there as the fourth quarter was trailing away there. So, obviously some mistakes that Missouri still has to clean up here during the Drinkwitz era. It's been something that's reared its ugly head at times over the last few seasons for sure. But again, as I've said before, a team under Drinkwitz, no matter which season it is, a team that never gives up, a team that always plays hard. And even if it's 4th down and 17, they're not packing anything in, as we saw yesterday. And you know what? Nobody likes the guy who complains about officiating when his team loses. So you know what? Allow me to complain about the officiating a little bit in a victory. In fact, I want to take a bigger picture look at college football officiating in general coming up. It's time to really just hit the reset button and do something completely different when it comes to refereeing, in my opinion. So I want to tell you all about that coming up. But first, I want to tell you about FanDuel. You got to score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. And yes, believe it or not, Missouri has a basketball game at home tonight, 21.5-point favorites against Jackson State. I'm guessing the crowd's going to be a little light for that one. People feeling a little hungover after the Florida game, both literally and figuratively. But either way, you got to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season in style. It's FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So like a lot of Missouri fans, I thought there were at least a couple really mind-boggling calls by the referees in that ball game yesterday. I thought there was a really blatant pass interference that was missed at one point, but even more bizarrely, a slide by the Florida quarterback, Johnny Walker, basically attempts to leap over the sliding player, and I guess catches him with his knee or something like that. I mean, what is the spirit of the rule here? Walker is trying to dive. He's truly trying to avoid hitting the guy. This is a physical game where they wear helmets and face masks. We can allow a little bit of incidental contact when the guy is, literally trying to jump out of the way of the sliding Florida player. But the point here really is not to focus on little calls here or there that I disagreed with. To me, what's ridiculous is in modern college football, this is not 1973 anymore. It's 2023. Every single game that Missouri plays is now on television and nationally televised as well. You can watch these games in Mexico, I suppose, if you have ESPN Plus and they allow it, and the Mexican government allows it. The point is, the only thing that really restricts you from seeing Missouri football is the FCC and, foreign governments and their different weird rules and regulations and that kind of stuff. It certainly isn't technology at this point. And all of that money that is now, all that TV money that's swishing around, obviously it's going to people like Eli Drinkwitz and Jimbo Fisher, right? They're getting all the money in the world. And even athletes like Luther Burden and Brady Cook are getting paid now too. Hey, fine and dandy. My point is, perhaps we should start paying the officials now and actually treat them as part of the sport. Of course, the NFL doesn't even do this. I don't know why I would expect college football to. But the entire sport of football in general just has to rethink how they treat officials, because frankly, it's starting to hurt the game. And the solution is not more instant replay, more endless instant replay that slows down the product and actually makes it more boring. Listen, I took my oldest daughter, who's about 4.5 years old, to the game yesterday. Hey, she had a good time, but unfortunately, the game lasted 4 hours. She made it to halftime, which was pretty darn good for her. I was impressed, to be honest. So great work, Ava Miller. You get a helmet sticker for this game. But seriously, if we're just going to make the game go longer and longer by endless stoppages for not only replay but TV timeouts as well. Listen, the TV timeouts, I understand. That's part of it. That's how they make their money. I get it. It's a necessary evil. Why is instant replay a necessary evil? Can we just move the game on? And instead of trying to take away plays, which is kind of what we did this offseason by saying, hey, the old rule of, the clock stops until you set the ball on a first down, that's just resulted in less football. It hasn't made the games go particularly faster. We've gotten a few less snaps, but it's not as though these games are going noticeably faster to me. Again, about a 4-hour football game yesterday, not a big deal to me. I'm a diehard Missouri football fan. If these games lasted 28 hours, I would hang in there. But for your casual fans, for your youngsters, kind of a tough ask. It really is. So to me, that's just one of many reasons why I just think the officiating has got to be brought in-house. We got to have real college football, full-time paid referees that can be held accountable, by the way, to their employer, to somebody, instead of them just being essentially faceless people that never have to talk to the media, never face any scrutiny. And most importantly, there's no real actual incentive for them to get better. What is the incentive for these referees to get better? As long as they're getting paid, they just keep getting that check every week. As long as people aren't specifically calling out these people by name, we don't know what their names are. So I don't know. To me, it's the entire idea of officiating in college football needs a complete and total rethink. And once again, thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. And be sure to check out for your second listen. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Again, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming show. It's Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. So until next time, I'm John Miller, and thanks as always for listening to Locked On Mizzou.